Oh, hi, welcome to Simple Economics with Tanvir Hashmi. In this video, you are going to learn how to calculate GDP deflator index and CPI, Consumer Price Index. In order to fully understand this lecture, you need to watch my previous video where I have calculated real and nominal GDP for you. So this is continuation of the previous video. In order to distinguish between GDP deflator index and CPI, we need to have just basic understanding of the two. GDP deflator, as the name suggests, it deflates the goods and services produced in a country by considering the price changes, which means that using the GDP deflator index, we can calculate inflation rate, which help us to find whether the rise in nominal GDP is equal or greater or less than the inflation index. The simple way to find the GDP deflator index is by using this formula on the board, which consider nominal GDP on the numerator and then real GDP of that particular year in the denominator, multiplied by base year index, which is always 100. Based on our previous activity, we did calculate the real and nominal GDP of 2020 as well as 2019. As you could see that the nominal GDP of the year 2020 is 1,753 million. You divide by the real GDP, which is equal to 1,466 million, multiply it with the base year index of 100, you get an index of 119.58. Rounding it off, like we could say approximately 120, which means that the inflation index has gone up by 20%. Obviously this is index, so you have to convert that into inflation rate, which is going to be 120, the current year index minus base year index over base year index times 100. So you could see obviously this is 20%. Now it shows that inflation has gone up by 20%, and when I look at the GDP of 2019, it is 1,430 million, and in 2020 it is 1,753 million. If you calculate the percentage change, or if you want to calculate the growth rate, we can call it economic growth as well, that would be around 22.5%. 1,753 minus 1,430 divided by 1,430 times 100, approximately 22.5%. That means the GDP is rising by 22.5% in nominal terms, and inflation is 20%. It tells you the story that actually the economy did not grow by 22.5%. Instead, it only grew by 2.5%, adjusting it with inflation. So that's the advantage of using GDP deflator index, that help us to find the impact of prices on our nominal GDP. It is different from CPI in a way that in CPI you just use the fixed basket of goods and services consumed by the individuals of that country, including imports. And as you know the difference between GDP and GNP, GDP only consider goods and services produced within the country, regardless whoever is producing it, foreigner or a local person in that particular country. In CPI basket, we consider everything which is consumed by all individual in that country, including imports item. But GDP only consider goods and services produced, may not be even consumed, but produced within the country. So we are going to see now shortly how we calculate CPI index or consumer price index. Stay with me. So here is how we calculate inflation through CPI method. In the real world, in the calculation of the CPI basket, we take around 600, 700, 800 goods and services, which is impossible for me, and I do not have the information of all goods and services. So I would continue with the same example I have been using from last two videos, as you have seen. The difference between the CPI and GDP deflator method is in the formula itself. As you can see, the CPI you calculate by using basket value in the current year over the basket value in the base year time 100. Now, there is small glitch when you calculate the basket value in the current year as compared to the base year. We actually consider the quantity as our weight. This is, as you know, in the calculation of CPI, we have to consider a base year, and then we have to assign the weight to each commodity to calculate the weighted index, which is a better method than the simple index method. And the weight does not change between the 2 years of inflation we are calculating for. So in this example, 2019 is our base year. Hence, the quantity of 2019 becomes the weight. So I would be taking it as the weight for this calculation of CPI. Sorry for using a smaller board. This is the maximum resources I have right now. So I have to squeeze all the information on this board. So this is our weight. Now when you calculate the basket value in the current year, you need to consider the 2019 quantity and multiply with the price in 2020. And that's the difference again between the GDP deflator and CPI. In GDP deflator, we consider prices constant because we're calculating there the real GDP. So prices are kept constant, and in CPI we are calculating the price changes, so price cannot be kept constant, but the weight has to be constant for the 2 year 2019 and 2020. So you multiply the 2019 quantity with the price of 2020. So this is going to be 20 times 4, which is 80, if you cannot see it clearly. Then 12 times the price of 2020, 11, which is 132. 30 times 50 is 1,500. All values are in million, but I do not have space, so just omitting the million, because in the numerator and denominator both millions will be cancelled out. So I just consider it without million. And divide by the base year value, which is easier because the base year value will be base year price times base year quantity, which we already have calculated, equal to 1,466, which is 60 plus 120 plus 1,250. And after putting the values in the formula, you could see that index is 116.7 as compared to GDP deflator, which was 119.58. So approximately inflation is 17% by CPI, and in GDP deflator it is 20%. Obviously, because the basket values on the basket commodities items are different in the two methods. I hope you understood the difference between GDP deflator index method and CPI. And if you like this video, then please subscribe the channel and spread the good words. See you next time. Bye bye.